Hi, this is Bill Hader.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Bill Hader.
Hello and welcome to the We Heart Hater podcast. We're choosing to give you our special Halloween episode 8 months early for some reason. I'm your nefarious co-host and spawn of Moloch, Casey Killingsworth.
And I'm Deej Casey, your co-host and creator, fresh from the River Styx.
And this episode is actually not a Halloween episode. It's not even a St. Patrick's Day episode, because that's part of it, but this is a month before that. This is our first impression spotlight on Bill Hader's Vincent Price, hence the spooky intros. But before we get into that, we want to talk a little bit about SNL 50. And I know some of you out there might be a little bit bummed that Bill wasn't there due to a scheduling conflict, but don't worry, we got you covered. That's what this podcast is for. So we'll talk a little bit about SNL 50. We'll move on to the Vincent Price stuff. So I'm going to throw it over to Deej.
Yes, as you saw the uproar on the internet about Bill Hader not being able to attend, and of course there's always the speculation because Bill is a very private person. So he doesn't really let a lot of stuff out that he doesn't think people need to know. Even the lead up to it, a lot of people also attributed to his anxiety, which could be the case, but we don't know because he was at SNL 40 and he did host after that episode as well. So according to reports from his publicist, it was due to a long-standing schedule conflict. And again, we don't know what that is. We will never know. It could be a family thing. It could be a medical thing because he's been having trouble with his eye lately. But every single report I've seen has always gone back to it's because of his anxiety. And while he still does have it, he does have better ways to deal with it. So we can't always just go back to the, oh my God, he's anxious thing. Of course, there's all the other people who are basically using the initials KMS for what they want to do if Bill isn't there. I don't know if people are saying it for just being over dramatic. If that is the case, I really don't like that because it's making light of a very serious situation that should not be said in jest. I love Bill Hader as much as anybody else. Sometimes a little bit even more, and there is always a risk of parasocial relationships. Yes, I'm disappointed, but he's a man. He has a life. He doesn't live his life according to what I want from him. Not only the fact that if you did do that because he didn't attend the 50th, imagine how that would make Bill feel. That because he couldn't go to the thing, that someone else took drastic actions because of that. Because another thing we all also know about Bill, he's a very sensitive person. Not only would it wreak havoc on your family and possibly damage yourself, but it would put a lot of guilt on Bill, and that really is not fair to anybody.
With that, we'll spend a moment or two talking about part of the SNL 50 rigmarole that Bill did take part in, which was the Californians VW commercial.
Yes.
So, Deej, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so, okay, we didn't get him on the show, but we did get a reprise of the Californians. And when I saw this, I was, unfortunately, because of geo-blocking, I couldn't see it at first, but luckily I have a really good VPN, Windscribe, by the way. Not sponsored, but I highly recommend it. So I was playing that commercial so many times the first day. Because recently at the Directors Guild Awards, Bill had appeared clean-shaven for the first time in pretty much since the end of Barry. And so it was, of course, that was the first speculation of, oh, he's shaved. Maybe he's preparing for Stefan on the 40th. But it looks like it was for the Californians commercial. And they just hit all the right beats. Hilariously funny. Bill looks like he hasn't changed from back then. And later on that week, they also released some outtakes, which were equally as hilarious, because, of course, the Californians is a sketch that people have a habit of breaking on. And, yep, there's a lot of break. And there's one little cute moment in there where he says his line, and then he just does a quick little sort of couple bows after saying it. So even the part where they're doing the da 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 reactions. They have Kristen, Bill, Fred, and then the car. Because in other parts of those sketches, they would also do the picture of the baby or the picture of Rosa sort of thing. So at least we got that. Anytime I feel bad about him not being at SNL 50, I go watch that.
That's great. Yeah, and I did see the commercial too, but not the outtakes. But I can kind of guess what the outtakes would be. And well, like you said, we know Bill has had anxiety about his time at SNL, and as we've also learned from the 50th and just recent interviews and social media in general, Bill's not the only one who's had that type of anxiety. We now know that Bowen Yang and Andy Samberg, among others, have, and they have their own ways of dealing with it too, which is the complete opposite of what Bill would do. Just put it out there to the world in the form of a song. And with that, I'd just like to give my general thoughts on the SNL 50 special from Sunday in general. Even though it got off to kind of a slightly rocky start, felt a little rushed and jumbled together from the get-go, I really loved it. It was the best I could have hoped for. I liked how it was sketch heavy enough that it just genuinely felt like two just regular episodes of SNL smashed together rather than just a collection of famous celebrities just introducing a series of clip packages in tuxes and evening gowns. And the homecoming concert that preceded it was really great. I like that those both honored the show's history without feeling, too self-indulgent. I like that they gave me what I really wanted for the whole thing overall. Last time we were on the Saturday Night Network patron feedback show, last time we were on there, I said that I wanted it to be more focused on, new live moments that would be, unique to a special anniversary show. Just have it focus on sketches because what would have been covered in clip packages was already covered in the documentaries we saw on Peacock. So I think they've covered everything else to just give us a real live reunion, and they gave us that. I especially liked how they used, Eddie Murphy and Mike Myers and other cast members from the distant past, and that does lead me to something else. I've seen some people online, one article in particular, say, "Oh, it's the 50th anniversary, but they didn't cover enough of the 70s, the 80s, or the original cast, which Aykroyd was there and Chevy and Jane were there, but just not on camera." So
Aykroyd was not there.
Oh, Aykroyd wasn't there, but Chevy and Jane were, just not on camera. See, I like how they used Lorraine too. Yeah, some people said, oh, they didn't really cover much from the 70s and 80s and one thing from the 90s. They said it was mostly focused on the last 25 years. And I say there has been a 15th, a 25th, and a 40th anniversary that have felt more traditional in those ways. And I'm sure people listening to this have seen each of those. And people from those older casts maybe get 9 years, especially the originals, and may not have wanted to have to go through rehearsing for this live show. So I say, when you're covering 5 whole decades of television history, you may kind of have to rush through or gloss over some things from the distant past that have been covered in the first 3 anniversary specials I just mentioned. So why not focus as much attention and effort as possible on just legitimizing sketches and performers from the last 20 years, even if it's under the guise of honoring the whole 50? Because I'm sure people my age and younger might appreciate that. I really like the Lonely Island medley from the concert. I'm sure my age would appreciate it because in a way it was like our eyeballs and YouTube clicks and whatnot that seemed to be the main thing pushing it past year 31. In a way, the era we're covering, not just Hader, but Sandberg, Wings, Sudeikis, they're the ones that pulled in the new YouTube audience and maybe introduced them to this new show they hadn't seen before, or showed some people, hey, maybe SNL is getting good again or trying new things, so maybe we should tune in. And yeah, it is also kind of fitting and appropriate that the 50th anniversary is kind of a encapsulation on what SNL gradually became not so much after the 40th, but mostly from years 41 to 47 when it had the most eyeballs on it, when most of the current casts were basically treated like glorified extras who were there to mainly support big, flashy celebrity cameos and maybe 2 or 3 standouts of the current cast that Lauren thinks all America's really tuning in to see. I say this with love because I do like how they use the current cast. Backed off just the heavy political cameos for the last few years, although it feels like in season 50 we were kind of headed back there. Yeah, that's my thoughts on SNL 50. You might have read my blog that I wrote
I
about it.
did.
If you'd seen this.
I caught a couple of shout outs there. Thank you very much. That was cute. But yeah, I agree with you. It was a very good special. It's nice that they took a slightly different tack with it because a lot of the other early years have been well covered on previous anniversary editions, but they made excellent use of Lorraine Newman, Garrett Morris introducing "Don't Look Back in Anger" at the towards the end was. It was very emotional. I also liked when they had the deep thoughts, and of course they still keep
The Phil Hartman voice.
the Phil Hartman introduction, and you can hear this "aww," which is how I felt. It was sort of a nice melding of older and newer cast, especially, of course, one of the series of sketches that Bill Hader's famous for is Scared Straight. And that kind of got a little bit spoiled because there was a bit of it was mentioned on the background of the bulletin board in the picture from the writer's room. I gotta say, Michael Longfellow, worthy successor to Bill Hader, because I had originally thought, I had actually tweeted out that I thought it was going to be Marcello Longfellow and Dismukes, but they just totally turned around and they made it Mikey Day. And there's the one part where they're going after Michael, and it's almost like towards the end he's kind of getting into it. That's what he's saying. In more than they did with all the past things that didn't age well, I thought that was a nice twist. And of course, the other thing, the song by Adam Sandler.
Yeah, I wonder what it says about me that the In Memoriam segment was probably my most rewatched segment of that. That was a nice twist. They might as well acknowledge the fact that a lot of our stuff hadn't aged well. It's 50 years, so we might as well put it out there. We know you're going to complain about it, or probably have. Times change, people change, and hey, maybe they should consider, Jack Handy's up to this, maybe they should consider bringing back Deep Thoughts, because they're quick and easy and cheap to produce. They're mostly voiceovers and text crawls. So, and before we move on to the bulk of this episode, I would like to congratulate our dear friends John Schneider and James Stevens of the Saturday Night Network on their red carpet interviews, which as of this recording we haven't seen on their channels yet, but they might have them out there by the time this is out, and if they are, we'd encourage you to check those out.
Yeah, they are working them on the way. They also do like a special thing for patrons as well, so they definitely have things planned.
Yeah, so yeah, good on them, and congratulations for getting that gig and getting the recognition they deserve for 5 years of hard work. And I'd also like to personally thank John Schneider for doing the patron feedback shows and even letting me interview with him and do one Superfan takeover before that, and just generally inviting me into his podcast space from time to time, and letting me get my sea legs as far as podcasting, and most importantly, connecting me with you, Deej, because it was only a few months ago that I happened to catch you saying you wanted to do your own podcast about Bill Hader, and essentially just put out an open call for a co-host, and I answered that and jumped on it. And now we've been doing this together for just a couple of months, and our 5th episode. Thanks, and I'm pretty grateful for all this. And with that, let's move on to the real subject of this episode of We Heart Hater.
Just one more thing. Let's just say that it was the patron feedback show was our backdoor pilot.
And this is something I do consider at least a spiritual spin-off of SNN, because we are doing a podcast about the man that them and their followers named the #1 greatest cast member of all time.
Yes, I was so happy to see that.
And we capitalized that and made it a thing of our own, and we got their start with them, and now we're here. So let's move on with our thing. We're going to talk about Bill Hader as Vincent Price. Just in case you don't know who the real Vincent Price was, he was an American actor known for work in the horror film genre, mostly portraying villains. He's had a lengthy career in stage, TV, radio, more than 100 films, 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one for motion pictures and one for television. One real Vincent Price movie I saw was The Tingler, which I saw because I went to a live event, a Mads Are Back event with Trace Beaulieu and Frank Conniff from Mystery Science Theater hosting and riffing that movie, and I saw that, got to meet them and get photos with them, and it was a fun evening. And as for where Bill's impression came from, I believe Deej may have told me this. I don't remember whether it was on or off mic, but she told me Bill had essentially said he was doing an impression of Dana Gould's impression of Vincent Price from one of his stand-up albums, which I'd recommend you seek out. More and more, it sounds like it may be one of those impressions that Bill taught himself out of his and his own family's just love of old movies, because he got to go on The Late Show with David Letterman on October 12th, 2007.
And for my audition, they said you have to do 3 impressions, 3 characters. And I was like, oh, I can do impressions. I could do like Vincent Price and James Mason and Gregory Peck. And they're like, we need someone who's alive.
He was like, okay, well, I could do Vincent Price rapping.
Don't you ever pull my lever, because I'll explode. My 9 is easy to load. You know, like, Mama said knock you out, anything like that.
Yeah.
You know?
How...
And Deej, do you have more on the origin of this Vincent Price impression?
On March 23rd, 2018, Bill was at South by Southwest promoting the premiere of Barry. He did a live recording for the Malton on Movies podcast, which was part of the Nerdist Network, hosted by film critic Leonard Maltin and his daughter Jessie. Here he tells how he came up with the impression. I apologize for the sound quality, as the original recording was in a very echoey hotel ballroom, and this is a voice note recording of that.
And I have to say, my impression of Vincent Price, I had never done Vincent Price. The writer Matt Murray was like, oh, you should play Vincent Price, that'd be funny. And we tried that, and I go, I don't have an impression, but Dana Gould, do you guys know who he is? He's a stand-up comedian. He did a great bit about Vincent Price, so I'm just doing his impression, where it was Vincent Price dating. It was him at a bar. He goes, I couldn't help noticing you sitting over here in the corner. Why won't you look at me when I speak to you? They did this to me. They did this to my face.
There's a famous quote from Bill where he's talking with they're just getting ready to do the first sketch, and Lauren comes up to him and says, I like this, but why now?
Why now? Why Vincent Price in 2005?
Yeah. And it was also at the most expensive set that they had done.
Really? I mean, since
Yes.
most of it's in black and white, I don't think you'd be able to tell.
Well, true, but it's all the little details in the background, I think. And of course, they had different effects, like they had the revolving door, which we'll discuss, but had the revolving door, and the hydraulic lift, and other things that help things go wrong. Let's get into the specific editions of the Vincent Price Holiday Specials. And as the proposer of the subject of this edition of our podcast, we will start with Casey.
In his first season, on the November 19th, 2005 episode with host Steve Longoria and musical guest Korn, I got a kick out of him attempting to horrify and Halloweenize Thanksgiving. It started with an ancient pagan ritual.
Thanksgiving, a holiday originating with the pagan festival of Grabnosh-Nishnak, where naked, blood-soaked man-beasts feasted on the entrails of peasant children. It was either that or the Pilgrims came up with it. I don't really know. I went to a small school. It was just me and two other guys.
He stumbled over this line, which the peasant children may have been him just recovering fully from his why now moment. Dale Hammond as Clark Gable comes in with the turkey. He enters through the door and says he's here to film the movie, not The Outsiders, but The Misfits, I think, working with Marilyn Monroe, and he hopes it's a long shot, if you know what I mean, and unfortunately Vincent Price does. From the other side of the revolving wall, Sands as Hitchcock and Wig and Garland enter. Sands as Hitchcock has stuffing that he's already eaten half of, and Wig is Judy Garland.
I remember I was writing a Vincent Price sketch, and I was like, hey, do you know of any can you do any old school impressions? And she said, I can do Judy Garland. And I go, oh, what can you say to Judy Garland? And she went, you ever get the feeling that your hands are made out of sand?
I mean, it makes light of the real Judy Garland's drug problem, but Wig has a strong debut moment here with a solid impression. But they have to cut away from a wigged out Judy Garland, as it were. So they throw to a commercial with Amy Poehler singing and dancing about how most doctors recommend Chesterfield cigarettes, which isn't that far off from a real 50 cigarette commercial, because I have seen one multiple times that says that most doctors are asked, what cigarettes do you prefer, doctor? And
the one that blew me away the most from back then was the Flintstones doing cigarette commercials.
Oh, yeah. Well, you do kind of have to understand that, like back in the early 60s, the Flintstones were sort of like the Simpsons and Family Guy of their time.
Yeah, I know.
Like, not made for kids, but safe for adults. But they come back from that. Vincent Price is telling Alfred Hitchcock what.
Now, why would you bring her here in that condition? I mean, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Are we back? Are you serious? Who makes 12-second cigarette commercials? This is ridiculous. All right.
And then they bring out Armisen and Longoria's Ricky and Lucy, which, yeah, I can see why getting to perform in these roles would have been a big deal. Or as Vincent Price calls him, America's favorite illegal immigrant. But at the same time, it also feels like the impressions aren't quite there yet. Like, maybe Armisen's underperforming a little and Eva Longoria's overperforming it. So it's just kind of an imbalance there and an already pretty long sketch. So maybe I might have cut it. But since Judy Garland's talking to a portrait on the wall, we have to, end the special, and Alfred Hitchcock just has to saunter over to her to...
What is she doing back in here? Hitchcock! Take care of her! All right, as I was saying, take your time, buddy, any time. No rush.
What did you think, Deej?
Yes, coming from the most evil, devil-plagued residence in Burbank. Was Kristen Wiig's first episode. He had met Kristen briefly before she started on the show. A manager was Naomi Odenkirk, and they were Naomi's place one day, and she said, okay, I just have to wait for the babysitter, as he relates in this story from the Vulturefest from last year.
Babysitter showed up.
That was me.
And so I was like, hi, and then we just kept moving. Yeah. And then she came in, I think, our fifth show, so I started SNL and, the fifth show in. Kristen came in, and...
Oh, it's the babysitter.
I was like, the babysitter got it. Oh, man. That was rough. And I went to Seth Meyers' office. I was like, that new girl is amazing. And he was like, you're a new guy. What do you mean new girl? I'm like, I got 5 shows on her. I'm a vet.
No, I was just going to ask, this might be a dumb question, but is there any relation between Naomi and Bob Odenkirk?
Yes, that's
Wow.
that's his wife.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
So the things I love about this sketch is one of the things that Lauren talked to him about in the writing of it is basically you need to change the logic of the sketch, because he was just being mean to everybody, and he brought up the point that if he's going to be mean to everybody he has on the show, why would he even do these specials in the first place? So when they turned it into the sane person having to deal with the crazy people around them, then the sketch flowed a lot better, which is very much true. For the performances, I didn't mind Fred Armisen's Desjardins and Darhan's Clark Gable. I wasn't overly impressed with the Alfred Hitchcock from Horatio Sands, but then again, he's not exactly like Bill being the impressions guy. But it worked for what it was. And of course, Amy as the dancing Chesterfield cigarettes pack.
Chesterfield, most doctors recommend Chesterfield. Chesterfield cigarettes.
Desjardins was supposed to bring pumpkin pie, but bought plantains instead. She kept calling Desi, Ricky, because they weren't there as Lucy and Ricky, although she's actually Lucy. So, I mean, she was trying her best, but I think if she toned it down just a little bit, it wouldn't be quite as grating. But got the spirit of it, definitely.
It kind of seemed like Eva Longoria was doing an impression of Gilda Radner's Lucille Ball, but then somehow got Gilda and Lucy confused with each other somehow. Yeah, it was almost there. She just needed to dial it back a bit.
Season 31, episode 14, Variety Vault from TV Land. Special was from 1961, but the actual sketch was March 11th, 2016. Special guests for this one are the host Matt Dillon as Rod Serling. First up is Daryl Hammond as Don Knotts, who was actually played Barney Fife, as played by Don Knotts. And then last one was Kristen Wiig as Katharine Hepburn. The Thanksgiving sketch beforehand, he went on this whole pagan thing about the completely false origins of the holiday, completely not getting it right at all.
Each year, those dark souls celebrated the feast of Flagel-Flagel-Dushin, a human sacrificial celebration honoring the beast god Bragoth, a pre-vernal Bacadol that would shame Baphomet himself, blood pouring out of every...
When Don Knotts come in, he says that he's taking everything too seriously, so he gives them this little green bowler hat for Vincent to wear, who is, of course, very reluctant, but presses on anyways. He was going to read a poem to the Kilkenny Pipers, and as you know, bagpipes be loud, so he cannot get anything out.
Take this opportunity to recite a short but nonetheless horrifying poem I wrote for this very occasion. I will be accompanied in this endeavor by the melodious tones of the Kilkenny Pipers. Boys! Midnight on the shores of Loch Dirge. Hounds baying at the scent of freshly spilt blood. Corner after wicket.
It was a nice idea, but the execution was definitely not ideal. Vincent introduces Katharine Hepburn, who is to bring the corned beef and cabbage, and as soon as she comes in, she starts going on and on, asking these questions. Vincent tries to get a word in edgewise, and he just keeps interrupting him.
And well, does that frighten you, Vincent?
Do you actually want responses to these questions?
Sometimes I wear my aviator goggles over my sunglasses.
Well, that's
Did you know
flying,
that?
yes. I know we talked about that.
Yes, yes. My Uncle Cubby says it's no way
Cubby.
for a lady to behave, but I say
Okay.
he's just being an old poop. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Thanks for
You
stopping
also
by.
have a crow
Thanks for
garden,
stopping by. That was
I used to ride
fantastic.
horses when I was two.
Okay.
My favorite bit, though, is when he brings out Rob Serling, the guy who does the show, the spookiness,
The Twilight
and
Zone.
the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Still waiting for the call on that one. Got a hit show about creepy stuff, but you can't find a role for old Vince Price, eh? Burgess Meredith. Sure. That guy just screams creepy. But no, not your good buddy Price.
A man doesn't realize that Burgess Meredith is 10 times the actor that he ever was.
Wow!
He burns him so hard with that it's like, really, you're on my show? Gosh, I was always sounding like a TV Funhouse there for a second. Very unusual to do a St. Patrick's Day, so it's a bit of a shorter one, but there were some good moments. I did love Daryl Hannah's Don Knotts. That was absolute perfection. Of course, I grew up with a lot of the weird Disney movies, and of course, during his run on Three's Company, after the Ropers went off for the spin-off, definitely a lot. Katharine Hepburn, Kristen, she always does these great impressions. So all around, it was a very good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, Bill still anchors this pretty flawlessly, and it's still his first season. And Daryl Hammond is this flabbergasted Barney Fife, Don Knotts. That's like a surprisingly good use of him in this era, because, light period Daryl Hammond was mostly used for political roles like, Dick Cheney or John McCain or, Chris Matthews from Hardball. And just it kind of felt a little awkward when he would just be used in a regular role in the background. This is a really strong use of one of his deep cut, out of pocket impressions. And I was like, what in the world? You need to put on this hat. And then I like Kristen Wiig's Kate Hepburn just fine. It may not have been as strong as Judy Garland, but they're both things that she really sold on sheer energy alone. And they write a little bit better for Katharine Hepburn later on. Yeah, the bagpipers drown out Vincent Price gag could have been executed a little bit better, but Daryl Hammond saves that. And I love the sheer passive aggression between Vincent Price and Matt Dillon as Rod Serling. And that was a great note to end this on, along with the bagpipers coming back in for Happy St. Patrick's Day. This is why we have rehearsal, people. And I'll mention this one thing real quick. Deej just sent to me a few hours ago before we were recording. So Bill actually did his Vincent Price voice for a strange one-off episode of Late Night with Conan O'Brien, The Skeleton Show, in October 30th, 2006.
Spooky Scalevision.
Right. He's basically filling in for Conan's regular announcer, Joel Goddard.
From NBC Studios in New York, it's Late Night with Conan O'Brien. Tonight, from Larry King Live, Larry King. From the TV show House, Omar Epps. And creator of the S Factor, Sheila Kelly. With Max Weinberg and the Max Weinberg 7. And now, here's your host, Conan O'Brien.
An entire random episode of Conan O'Brien is acted out with skeleton puppets. And I watched this whole thing, and the funniest thing to me at the end was his last guest was a woman named Sheila Kelly, who did a demonstration with Conan where she taught him how to pole dance, and you could see these guys in green bodies, just the shadows of these guys in green bodysuits just holding the skeletons and trying to puppeteer them around a stripper pole until the point where they have to slide her down and this poor Sheila Kelly woman's skeleton head falls off. It's just a classic Conan bit, just, riding skeletons around a stripper pole until they completely fall apart. That's the type of thinking that made Conan the once and future king of late night.
So my next is one of my absolute favorites. Season 34, Episode 6, from October 25th, 2008. The host is John Hamm. First Halloween special. Yeah, so this is where they start doing some fun intros to the fact that they're on TV land. And this is actually the first one that he wrote with John Mulaney. John Hamm as James Mason. Now, a little background on this. So, when the sketch was written originally, John Hamm was supposed to be Dean Martin. Warren didn't feel that his Dean Martin was quite up to par. So, they had him switch to James Mason instead, but they did not have time to rewrite the sketch. So he's playing Mason, but doing Dean Martin dialogue.
So James Mason wasn't known as a notorious drunk, but they just didn't have time to write a completely different character.
Exactly. So at the beginning of his intro, he's coming up on a hydraulic lift, and of course it just stops. So he's kind of stuck between the bottom of the floor.
When the minions of Sam Hain come back. Guys, I'm not fully up yet. You gotta keep pressing the thing. To wreak havoc on the living. And guys, wrong way. Out, guys. Guys, what's going on? Broken? Seriously? Fine, hold on a second. All right. Well, thank you all for... Guys, I'm out. Stop it.
So it's John Hamm as James Mason, and then we get Kristen Wiig as Gloria Swanson.
We have the entry with James Mason and Gloria Swanson, who Gloria was supposed to come as a pirate, but of course she's doing the Gloria Swanson overacting thing, feeling that it's all about the acting, so my performance should be good enough. John Hamm as James Mason, where he was supposed to be dressed as a spaceman and as an astronaut, and I didn't open the box.
Not that the suit was too old fashions. He drank 2 old fashions, and he's been drunk since 11 a.m.
Fred Armisen, who is Liberace, who is actually supposed to dress up in a different costume.
Where's the ghost costume, Liberace?
Ghost? I thought we agreed on Restoration France by way of Atlantic City.
Brought John Mulaney in from, this was one of the first few episodes he was working on.
And then and then Seth Meyers and I wrote a Vincent Price sketch that night, and we were writing it, and we go, we should bring the new guy in, John.
Hey, guys. Hi, everybody.
And we go, we should bring John in and see, if he's got anything for this. And so we were throwing on stuff, and I was like, oh, man, it'd be good if Vincent Price said something to Liberace, I don't know if you guys remember, Fred Armisen would play Liberace. And we go, hey, Liberace, whatever, and what can he say? And John was quiet the whole time, kind of nervous, and then John goes, oh, he could say, save your sassiest sides for your windowless bars. I was like, that's like a perfect joke.
And the downside about that one is, I love the line. He loved the line. Everyone loves the line. But it just did not get the audience reaction that we were hoping for, because that line is actually pretty brilliant. This is the first introduction of Liberace to the sketch series. He can make anything, a lot of double entendres here. And, of course, Vincent is trying to keep this under control. He's trying to get James Mason to participate.
Gloria and I could use something a bit more upbeat. Do you know this one? There once was a girl named Regina.
Stash Family Show!
You don't even know where it's going.
All the same.
Vagina.
Wonderful. Local children. Children. I'm reminding all of you, children. Especially all of you. All right, let's answer the door.
James Mason scares the children away. One of them says, I want my mommy, and James Mason says, well, I do too, because they go back on the hydraulic thing going down, and of course it gets completely stuck again.
Let's wrap it up. You have just partaken in a celebration most foul, where phantasms and wraiths. You want a clear frame there? Just wanna wander the earthly plane in search of vengeance upon the living, and guys, I thought we had this thing fixed. Oh, great. Oh, great. Now we'll have a happy Halloween, everybody.
There's so much going on with this one. It still remains one of my favorite editions of this to this day.
Yeah, I agree. I think this may be a lot of people's favorite one of these Vincent Price specials, because it's been frequently shown in like modern era Halloween specials over and over, like with David S. Pumpkins and Obama's Walk On and things like that. So it's gotten a lot of exposure, and it also aired during a pretty strong period for the show in general. And yeah, Hader's still solid, but they do give, John Hamm kind of the best lines in this. So he doesn't quite steal his thunder. It's just that Fred Armisen and John Hamm sort of usher in the transition of Hader's Vincent Price character from a guy who spookifies holidays and just has to deal with these uncooperative celebrities into the flustered straight man who has completely lost control of his own show to three drunken, oversexed, low-key degenerates. And, Wig did a funny Gloria Swanson, and even though it's fairly restrained for her, we do see a little bit of late-era Wig Heyman creep in. Like you said, John Mulaney joined the writing staff with this season, not with his sketch, but it's one of the first one of these he worked on, which does make me wonder who actually wrote the first two. And it does make sense that Mulaney would bring these back just as a way to get Bill on the show more. They're friends, they bonded, and Mulaney was one of the first guys to recognize Bill's talent and say, hey, why aren't we using this guy more? It does feel tightened up a bit and has a lot more energy than the first two, because we're getting away from this season 31 of it all, and we're fully in a new era, and John Mulaney seems to have a better sense of how to make these play live.
When you're new to SNL, a lot of the first part of your journey there is finding writers who you gel with. When you're a person who can perform comedy, not necessarily write comedy, finding a writer that will work with you on a regular basis is the key. And of course, this is when John Mulaney and him coming together is like such a blessing.
Amen to that. And before we get into the next full Vincent Price sketch, I want to mention a quick moment from the Paul Rudd and Beyonce episode from November 15th, 2008. So Justin Timberlake shows up, makes a cameo on This Weekend Update just to explain that he was originally supposed to host next week's Thanksgiving episode that would end up being hosted by country singer Tim McGraw. He wanted to stop by just to tell us what he thought that episode would have been like had he hosted. He had to back out due to a scheduling conflict. He has it mapped out in his head, so he goes through, here's the political cold open, monologue. And he does mention these Vincent Price sketches. He says, welcome back to the Vincent Price Thanksgiving special featuring me and 3 other dead people. And Justin thinks he would play James Dean in this. Well, someone more fitting to do a James Dean impression a year later at Christmas. And I guess that just shows how iconic they became. The Valentine's Day special, 1966, February 14th, Valentine's Day 2009 episode with Alec Baldwin, the Jonas Brothers, which, by the way, great idea to include this sketch in an episode where a lot of young girls would tune in to see the Jonas Brothers in their Disney teeny bopper era, because they're definitely going to get all these references for sure. Yeah, our Lord of the Shadows, Vincent Price, endures domestic strife between Lovebirds Richard Burton, played by Alec Baldwin, and Elizabeth Taylor, played by Casey Wilson, on this Valentine's Day special. Also, we had Kristen Wiig as Carol Channing, and of course, Fred Armisen as Liberace. I gotta say, I've seen better Liberace impressions than Fred Armisen's, like Dave Thomas's from SCTV, but he finally found a role that really suits him. You know, someone on an old message board, possibly Sean Bradley's, I remember pointing out how these may have become the new Celebrity Jeopardy of their era, because we've got Hader's Vincent Price serving the Farrell Trebek role, and Armisen's Liberace is the Hammond Connery, and you can see that there because, Armisen's always in these as Liberace's now, and he enters with a revolving bookcase gag, which was
Valentine's Day, that special day when the pulse quickens. Wait a minute! Go back the other way. Valentine's Day, that special day when the pulse quickens. Not with you're doing it again. No, go to the package.
Carol Channing comes in alone too. Zero explanation for what happened to her husband, Charles.
Oh, actually, there was an explanation. Because because to come with your Valentine. Oh, Valentine? I thought you meant Valentine.
Richard Burton takes that, and then Fred Armisen's alone on Valentine's Day because the fleet shipped out last week.
Well, hello, Vincent. And hello, young lovers.
Liberace, where is your date?
Well, the fleet shipped out yesterday.
A secret isn't a secret when you make no effort to hide it.
Alec Baldwin as Richard Burton is okay. Wiig's Carol Channing is quite stellar. And they're odd impressions for someone my age to judge the accuracy of, because I can really only compare them to previous impressions I've seen. I mean, I've seen Bill Murray and John Candy do Richard Burton. I've seen Ryan Stiles do Carol Channing on Who's Line. And I've heard Carol Channing's voice in more modern era on Family Guy. But these impressions all feel really lived in. Alec's role suits him well as just, a drunken, spurned husband. Kristen Wiig, disappears into her role in a way I don't think I've seen her do anywhere before or since. And even Casey Wilson does well as a woman who gets a little chance to prove herself with no lines. But we're skipping ahead. Vincent Price tries to give Carol Channing some chocolates. He hopes it doesn't get too out of hand. The hole for the hand to pop through is right next to the chocolate. Alec is Richard Burton, just wants to give her all the chocolates to graze on. And
do you mind if I take 2 chocolates? 4 chocolates. All the chocolates.
Go for it.
Yes. Here! Feed! Graze! Does this placate you, you Wolverine?
By the end of this sketch, Vincent Price starts singing My Funny Valentine. Elizabeth Taylor runs in and she's about to slap him, but they stop, kiss, and make out. And then Vincent Price notices this.
Whoa, hey, guys, what's going on here? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there someone here who doesn't like watching a man and a woman make love?
Fred Armisen's Liberace silently raises his hand.
Why can't you two just behave like Carol? Carol. Where's the hand?
I'll never tell.
Great. Just great.
She and the hand hit it off.
They're continuing on with the TV Land intros. In this one, it's...
You're watching TV Land, which means you've liked the same stuff for 40 years. Hey, good for you.
Now, being the old broad here, I can definitely tell you that the impressions are accurate. In particular, Kristen Wiig's Carol chatting. And if I do say so myself, my Carol chat earlier was actually not too half bad. So, at least that's one impression I can kind of get.
Yeah, good job there.
Yeah, thank you. So, the revolving door was giving them issues. Liberace was used as Liberace as female companion, which of course he does not have it. That was the line that Richard Burton used at the end was, what's so great about a hand through a hole? Which of course, Liberace starts raising his hand. Just as they're closing it out, Vincent Price goes over to the revolving wall.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. How long do I have to tug on this thing before something happens? Oh, don't say it, Liberace.
I think this one and the Matt Dillon one were the only ones that have never been uploaded to YouTube. I'm going to guess with this one, My Funny Valentine maybe, I don't know. Not something you can really easily find. Casey actually managed to find this one, which reminded me of someone I follow on TikTok is Huggy Attack. And his channel is all SNL clips, so he's a really entertaining TikTok account for the SNL fan. Bazinga, stop poking at me. I'm getting the paw poke of feed me, and I fed you beforehand. Bazinga being my very fluffy cat. 4 out of 6 being online, not too bad.
To the next one, which I believe you're going to talk about.
Another classic. Okay, so the next one is Season 35, Episode 10, on December 19th, 2009. James Franco is the host, and this is the Christmas special. So they have James Franco as James Dean, Fred, of course, back as Liberace, Kristen Wiig as Katharine Hepburn, and there's also a brief appearance by Abby Elliott as Marilyn Monroe in the commercial for this episode. Oh, and the TV Land tagline is...
You're watching TV Land, which means you are a cat in an empty apartment.
Vincent Price comes out, there's a little Santa hat on the raven on his shoulder, which I thought was a really cute touch. Before the intro, there's doing a lot with the smoke machine, and it's just quite a bit too crazy.
The one night of the year when an intruder in blood red garb is greeted with joy. When ghosts have often visit the... Hey, guys, can we cut the smoke, please? Just go to the package. Go to the package. And now.
Theme of the Christmas episode is Secret Santa. And then the first guest to arrive is, I believe, Katharine Hepburn. And her Secret Santa gift was she brought a tree.
Hello, Vincent. I'm here, and my Secret Santa gift is a tree. I'm telling you because I don't care for secrets. It's an Norway spruce that I cut down myself in Connecticut.
You dragged a tree from Connecticut to Burbank?
Oh, I don't care for planes, Vincent, and I despise trains. I like brisk walks and good exercise.
Wow, so you have...
A walk would do you good, some good, Vincent. Look at you. You need some color in those cheeks.
Well,
Now, where should I put this? I need a good wicker tree basket. Oh, I don't see one here. Oh, fine. I guess I'll put it over here. I'll put the tree over here, Vincent.
All right. Nice talking to you.
And then James Franco comes in as James Dean. Now, the fun thing about this is Bill has sort of worked with James Franco before this. James Franco was doing a biopic on James Dean, and he was a PA on that particular show. So that was kind of a time before he worked with, of course, Franco again on Spider-Man.
Oh, you were a PA on the first Spider-Man, and I remember I had to
So if you watch the first Spider-Man movie, there's a scene where James Franco gets hit in the head with a piece of, it's like the pumpkin bomb, you know, and then he gets hit in the head. Well, I'm the guy, I'm above this on this ladder. And Sam Raimi's like, all right, so I want you to do is on the count of 3, you drop this foamy foam on, and I did it, and it knocked him out. And then James hosted SNL years later, and I go, hey, and he goes, hey, didn't you hit me with that break?
Wow, you remembered it?
Yeah, and he remembered
Wow,
me.
that's fantastic.
I was like, yeah, hey.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I remember you.
And of course, he is doing the angsty James Dean thing.
Merry Christmas, James.
Yeah, I guess.
Did you bring a Secret Santa gift?
Don't tell me what to do.
I'm not telling you anything.
You're always hassling me!
We just met!
And basically, Liberace is just like, fresh meat.
Hi, James.
Easy.
Does this do anything for you, James?
I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I'm so confused.
That's a start. Come on, sit down.
Full court press, huh, Liberace?
Katharine Hepburn, unfortunately, with her tree, had a stowaway. There was a raccoon that came with her on the tree, who eventually attacks her, and she ends up breaking the poor raccoon's neck, and she has this big wound on her neck. So I'll just put a Band-Aid on it. We'll all be fine. So they cut to a commercial, which is the asbestos commercial with Marilyn Monroe. And asbestos, of course, she's flinging the asbestos in the air. As some people may know, the snow that was falling down, or the dust that was falling down in The Wizard of Oz, was also asbestos. Of course, at the time, they didn't realize that by inhaling asbestos, you could be basically getting it's like having fiberglass in your lungs. At this time, Liberace is encouraging James Dean to sing along with him in A Christmas Carol.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Just try it. Fa la 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 la.
Well, I like that. I guess I should try new things more often.
Well, Merry Christmas to me.
Well, you just want people to know? Is that your deal these days?
I'm not quite sure if James Franco's impression. I keep meaning to look up the actual biopic it did and see what voice he used, because, again, I don't know what this voice was. It just didn't seem very accurate. Was he doing something different for effect, or using the same thing they used in the biopic that he did?
Yeah, I mean, watching this, I kind of have a hard time believing that James Franco had played James Dean already in a professional movie. First of all, he's a little too raspy for anyone to be able to tell how good the impression is, and the impression seems to be less reliant on the voice and just him posing and pouting and brooding. Just the voice and general vibe just seems to be a generic, fey, repressed, vaguely Southern guy. Among the repeated impressions in this, Wiggs, Katharine Hepburn is solid. It's more fine-tuned and tightened up due to Mulaney's writing. And I thought the gag with her finding a raccoon in the tree she cut down and then killing it, but not before it bites her and gives her rabies, that might have been my favorite part of this.
Yes. Very much like the end of A Couple Great, the Alien, of the Alien sketches, where they're actually up close to the screen. Of course, she's foaming at the mouth. And I just looked it up. So James Franco did the biopic in 2001. So this was after he did that.
I can see why they'd cast him then, because he might have been not a well-known actor, but yeah, probably a boost to his career early on. Getting into that, him and Armisen together as Liberace seems a bit odd. It does end with Fred Armisen essentially implied fellatio, which might officially mark the point where just the cheap gay jokes just overtook these altogether. And given that James Franco is involved in a sketch where someone's just aggressively hitting on someone, that, to me, that makes it age just badly enough that it could be a candidate for inclusion in the SNL 50 in memoriam montage, which, again, if you know anything about Franco's scandals, you might know that, but we won't get into it right now. But yeah, that was the Christmas one, and now we're going on to the final sketch with our Prince of Hades, Vincent Price, the 1960 Halloween special, which really aired on October 30th, 2010 in the John Hamm and Rihanna episode. Vincent Price's 1960 Halloween special is ruined by Judy Garland's drug dependency and sexual innuendos courtesy of Senator John F. Kennedy and Liberace. Kristen Wiig plays Judy Garland, Armstrong's Liberace, and John Hamm is John F. Kennedy. And so it's all repeated impressions, but Wiig does Judy Garland really well. John Hamm had done a bit of his John F. Kennedy before. In the first time he hosted, when they did that Halloween one, they also did a sketch about the Obamas hosting a variety show, played the ghost of JFK, and it worked better in that sketch than this one. I mean, it was an okay impression, but I remember thinking they could have given us his Dean Martin, which we didn't see, but now that I've heard that they didn't think his Dean Martin was good enough to air in the sketch, why would they give it to us now? I mean, I personally felt this was the weakest of the Vincent Price sketches, and it was the last one, so they kind of knew when to end it. I mean, the skeleton puppet panning out till he's in frame.
Am I in the shot? Lou, the talking skeleton doesn't work if I'm in the shot. What's rehearsal even for? Go to the open!
That was probably the best thing about this. First, Judy Garland comes in with her stash of drugs. They're not M&Ms, they're just various pills she wrote M's on because they're all for me, like this one and this one and this one, popping pills like crazy. And then JFK with a woman who's not Jackie Onassis, it's Nassim Pedrad.
Oh, well, you told me to bring Candy, so I'd like to introduce you to Candy DiCenzo of the Reno DiCenzos.
You're so funny, Johnny.
My God, man, you're running for president.
Oh, don't worry, Vincent. She's just my campaign manager.
Oh.
And also a prostitute.
He asks Judy Garland for back pills, but she has no water. He says, that's okay, I can dry swallow. But don't say swallow, because Liberace is right there.
Liberace, you weren't invited this year.
Oh, I couldn't miss a party, Vincent.
Well, as long as you're on good behavior. Did you bring us any candy?
Oh, aren't these lovely? These are rum and Kahlua meringues. They have a hard outer shell, but if you work at it, you get a mouthful of cream.
The combination of JFK and Liberace is double the sex jokes. It's almost like a Merv the Perv sketch with Chris Parnell when he tries to show them how to carve a pumpkin. Step 1, cut a hole out of a pumpkin. Step 2, wait behind it.
Liberace! Step 2, carve a spooky face with a big, wide mouth.
The fewer the teeth, the better.
Liberace! Please stop. Then, for a little fun, put a candle in the pumpkin.
There, for a lot of fun, I like to put my candle between two pumpkins.
Senator! I'm getting it from both sides.
Been there, done that.
A new rule. Be careful what you say around Liberace. He can twist anything and bend anything too. So at this point, he just screams gibberish at him because he doesn't know what else to do. And it's official at this point. Fred Armisen's Liberace has officially become Flanderized. But we still get Kristen Wiig as Judy Garland, who gives John Hamm, JFK, his most brilliant idea for his campaign. Put a man on the moon and have him play golf, which seems impossible, but as JFK really said, we do things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. Unlike Liberace, who does things as they're easy and hard, and that establishes the Liberace rule. Then they do that classic Halloween thing where they blindfold you and put your hands in grapes and say they're eyeballs, and spaghetti and say they're brains from zombies. Judy Garland's so freaked out on drugs she thinks this is real.
These are zombie braids.
Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
Oh, we're having fun, spooky fun here. Spooky fun, all friends. Now, these are zombie eyeballs here.
Why, this is the worst thing ever. I'm going crazy. I tell you, I'm crazy. Mickey Rooney.
Mickey Rooney, she's flipping out. Hey, look. The brains were just spaghetti, and the eyeballs were just grapes.
This zombie finger is just a sausage. Armisen is holding a jack-o'-lantern at crotch level, like he's Justin Timberlake on Halloween or Andy Samberg on Halloween. And JFK's got his hand in there, and now we know he's got Liberace's vote. And if I'm not mistaken, that closes out the last Vincent Price Halloween sketch. So, Deej, I just felt like I was kind of running on fumes creatively, and this one felt more burnout than the others. But Deej, you seem to have a more positive opinion of this one than I did. What did you think?
Well, I preferred the earlier Halloween version to this one, though it still had its moments. Now, the thing with Liberace being there is he wasn't actually invited. He just showed up. Kristen with her Judy Garland. The little touches with Bill's Vincent Price. One thing he is consistent with all of these is after this frustrating bit, he'll just turn to go seriously looking into the camera, starting to get things back on track. I love his delivery of the line,
"Spooky crafts."
Before the other part with Garland is there's a man outside.
What's wrong, Judy?
Oh, there's a tall, scary man outside with a big green hat.
Judy, that's a palm tree.
John Hamm's JFK was actually pretty good. Nice little moment from the scene. Of course, there's one part with that where he's trying to decide whose pumpkins are better, I guess.
So he's just fondling Nassim and Kristen's boobs, and he picks Kristen and tells Nassim to take a hike.
So this is our conclusion to the series of Vincent Price, but it's still one of his most classic impressions. Definitely tell how he's evolved over thing from being like, and there's little quirks you definitely see from Bill, because there's this how he always wants to try and cover his face, so he has this thing with his left hand where his hand's kind of crunched up, and you can see his hands sort of hovering towards his face, but he manages it under control pretty much.
One more note, I do want to mention a couple of tidbits I saw online, just descriptions of some Vincent Price sketches that did not air. Got cut at dress rehearsal.
Nice.
One was from the season 31 finale from May 20th, 2006 with Kevin Spacey and Nelly Furtado. So I guess aside from maybe a Vampire Office getting cut, they cut that they also cut. This was the Vincent Price Memorial Day special. Lost television recording from 1960 features spookish Vincent Price, Bill Hader, guests Carol Channing, played by Kristen Wiig, and Jack Lemmon, played by Kevin Spacey, and Alfred Hitchcock. Horatio Sands appears in a commercial for Psycho, and this is via SNL transcripts. The second one was from October 20th, 2012 episode from Bruno Mars, which they must not have wanted to overload it. That must be why they cut Vincent Price's 1967 Halloween special, which was cut after dress rehearsal never aired. It would have featured, among others, Kate McKinnon as Janis Joplin using a bong disguised as a carved pumpkin. And this is from the IMDb trivia section for this episode. I also remember reading somewhere, maybe it was One SNL Day or the old Sean Bradley site. So my memory serves, this also featured Tom Hanks as Walter Cronkite and Bruno Mars as Jimi Hendrix, I think. But yeah, they cut two of those. That second one especially I would have liked to see. That's all the Vincent Price sketches that were ever written, and that's the episode.
We suggested for what we're going to cover next time. Yes, so episode 6, going to be doing Mindy Project.
That'll, be a fun one.
Appeared in the first and the second seasons. He was actually supposed to appear again in the fourth season, but for some reason it never happened.
Okay, so if you like listening to this podcast, even half as much as we enjoy making it, please, feel free to like and subscribe. and, give us hopefully a 5-star rating or the highest rating you can give us. And leave us a review or comment. Who knows, we may read it on a future episode. And you can find us on Spotify, Audible, the Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
And iHeartRadio.
And now we're on iHeartRadio. And you can also follow us on our socials. Look for the We Heart Hater podcast on Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky and Instagram. Also, we have Facebook and Reddit pages. And now we have a TikTok, which Deej runs because she's in Canada, I'm in the US, where downloads of TikTok are paused legally.
Yep.
Which
just like I can't download Peacock even with a VPN on.
And maybe that's why I couldn't even log into the TikTok with the username and password. She runs a TikTok, I run all the others but we do, aside from TikTok, we both regularly post on those. So,
and of course we email wehearthater@gmail.com.
So all the ways you can think of to reach a person or a podcast on the internet, you can reach us there, and we'll be happy to take notice and respond. Excited for that Mindy Project episode. That might be, I haven't seen much of that one, so it might be new and exciting and a bit of a challenge to figure out how to review that, especially multiple episodes.
But it is on Netflix, in the States anyway. Thank you very much for joining us on this Impression Spotlight, and I'm Deej Barons, and will continue to be.
I'm still Casey Killingsworth, and will still be until I'm notified otherwise.
Casey, who do you heart?
Who else? Hater. And I know you do too, so it's safe to say both of us, we heart Hater.
We heart Hater. And remember, pay attention at rehearsal. Thank you for listening to We Heart Hater. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We Heart Hater is a presentation of Wacky Notion Productions. Created by Deej Barons. Hosted by Deej Barons and Casey Killingsworth. Recording and editing by Deej Barons. Intro and outro music by Music Unlimited, used under Creative Commons license, courtesy of Pixabay.com.